Hello. Today we are doing study skills and or life skills with Mr. Wheeler. Today we're going to talk about the circle of courage and kind of what it is, a little bit about its origin, but mostly the content of it. So as you can see at the bottom here is the circle of courage. It's kind of the medicine wheel, but it's interpreted in a little bit of a way that's focused on kind of life skills. So talk about the mind quadrant, spirit, emotion, and body. As you're watching the video, as opposed to being a part of the live group session, I encourage you to take notes, have a little pad of paper next to you and take notes as you're talking. I might ask you to take a break and journal. Just pause the video and write down in that. Using a pad of paper while watching a presentation like this can be helpful in kind of solidifying the information and having it sink in and connect with you. So here's where we start with that, right? After I explain this a little bit, pause the video and consider these thoughts, right? Consider your understanding of the circle of courage. Write down, if you don't know at all what it is, write down what it could be. What do you think it might be? If you are familiar with it, where did you learn it? Who did you learn it from? Who taught you about the circle of courage? And then the second part is, how does it inform your daily decisions or actions? If you've never heard of it, it probably doesn't, and you can write that down. But if you have heard of it, when do you think about it? When are you thinking about the circle of courage? Go ahead and pause your video. Okay, so now we're just going to break down kind of the central values and the idea. This is very much native teachings, indigenous teachings of courage and how to live. So there's four different quadrants: mastery, belonging, generosity, and independence. And we're going to spend one slide for each of these sections. But just a quick summary. I like this slide because it just shows everything. Mastery, in short, is achieving your goals. It's setting a goal and achieving them and working towards them. It also includes failure and mistakes and all that stuff. But all of that contributes to the process of mastery. You cannot be a master in something without failure and mistakes and attempts and repeats and coming back. And there's a lot that goes into it. Belonging, the basic concept of belonging is being a respectful part of a group, having connection. And during these COVID times, this is so important, is finding that belonging, whether that's within a classroom that you really feel connected to, or a group of students, or your family, or your pets, anything that you can have connection with and have a really strong relationship with. And then we have generosity, contributing positively to others. How are we, and how that impacts us? How do we reach out and support others? And that impact that has on us is very strong. And then independence, demonstrating personal responsibility, and especially with school, instead of having teachers or families say, "Hey, do your homework," you as a student build that up in yourself and say, "Well, I'm going to go do my homework." That's it's on you to decide that. And when you can develop that skill, you're going to find yourself to be a more successful student, but also a more successful kind of individual in other aspects of life as well. So all of these relate more to the core of who we are as people, but they definitely overflow and translate to how we function as students. And all of that can also support us as people. So, belonging, we're going to talk a little bit about the history and kind of where it came from. The content of this presentation is from Star Commonwealth, which is an organization that Mount Pleasant Public Schools is partnered with through the Project Aware grant. So, this content and the description is from Star Commonwealth, which is a school or a behavior trauma informed education program to help us as educators in school systems support our students with a more um, open worldview and how to support us. So the Circle of Courage is just such a natural thing for Indigenous people because it's part of the culture. But for non-Indigenous educators, it can be a newer concept. So that's where this information is from. Little side note. Okay, belonging. Native American and First Nation cultures' significance was nurtured in communities of belonging. Lakota anthropologist Ella Deloria described the core value of belonging in these simple words: be related somehow to everyone you know. Now, an anthropologist is a researcher, scientist who studies cultures of the past and maybe the current, the present. Ella looked at the Lakota tribe. So in Michigan, we have the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe of Michigan. the Lakota tribe, I believe, is out in the Dakotas, North or South Dakota. So she researched and she reviewed that culture and learned a lot about this quadrant of belonging. And the idea is to be related somehow to everyone you know. We're all connected. We're all family in a way. And that sense and that way of knowing helps us respect each other and understand that we're all coming from something. Even when there's conflict, we can have respect for each other. Treating others as kin forges a powerful social bond that draw into relationships of respect. Think about we're in COVID right now. We're all experiencing this stress and frustration together. Being alone is difficult. Sure, we're with some people, but we're lacking as a human. We're lacking that larger group connection, um, and we miss it. So know that you're not alone in that. And through that struggle, I think we kind of have our own sense of belonging and connection. This theologian observed that through history, the tribe, not the nuclear family, always ensured the survival of the culture. Meaning, it's not just about your parents or guardians and siblings. It's the group. It's the community that supports us. It's not just about that nuclear family, but the culture survives through the tribe, which is a larger group of people. Um, Always ensured the survival of the culture, even if parents died or were not responsible. The tribe was always there to nourish the next generation. A huge teaching in Native culture is the 7 generations of the past and the future. What world are we leaving for the next 7 generations? And this is such a core thing of the tribe. That's why the tribe is so important, the larger group than just the nuclear family, because the future relies more on the group than just the individuals of our own family. So that sense of knowing we belong outside of even our own family is super important for us on a lot of levels. But this is just an overview, so I don't need to get too far into it. Mastery, competence in traditional cultures is ensured by guaranteeing opportunity for mastery. Children were taught to carefully observe and listen to those with more experience. We have teachers here, right, in the schools, and the teachers know a lot about these contents, even just from a basic standpoint. Our obligation for students is to observe and take in that information. And then you can challenge yourself and grow and learn what topics you're more interested in, and really pursue those topics as well. I'm going to jump a little bit. Humans have an innate drive to become competent and solve problems. This is very important. Your natural instinct is to do well at a skill. Our natural instinct is to want to do well. If you find you're not doing well in something, or you're having behavior outbursts and you're getting in trouble, it's not because you're a bad person or anything, or if you're someone outside of that experience and you're looking at someone and thinking, gosh, what can I do to help them? This is a skill. Being Managing our emotions is a skill. It takes mastery to perfect and learn that skill. When we get angry or when we get frustrated or when we want to just quit school, those are moments of frustration and pain. But through mastery and through reflection and hard work, we can get through those moments and learn the skills to help us thrive in those. So mastery is it's a unique thing that really can impact our mental health and our school drive. If we're not feeling that drive to school, think of it as a skill that you need to learn, not so much as something about you that is just flawed, right? Your inability maybe to study or focus at school. It's not necessarily your fault, but it's a skill that you don't have yet. You can learn it through mastery. Um, I would encourage you, I've talked a lot here for a minute, take a moment, press pause on the video, write down some thoughts on both belonging and mastery. You can write down how you feel like you do have a sense of belonging or how you feel like maybe you don't. And if you do feel that way, reach out to us and connect, and we want to support you. You can also focus on mastery. What areas do you want to work on mastery and become more knowledgeable in? And then what areas do you feel like you're successful in? So pause the video, jot down some of those thoughts. Independence. So I'm just going to quick look at this circle, right? We've talked about belonging, mastery, independence. This is a really cool circle just to have. Print this out and save it somewhere, and go back to it and just put it somewhere where you see it a lot. So then every time you look at it, you kind of remember um, the 4 quadrants that we're talking about. But it kind of brings you back. It can center you and take some time and just reflect on this stuff. It's really a grounding, very, very powerful grounding activity. Independence. Power in Western culture was based in dominance. This is good. But in tribal traditions, it meant respecting the right for independence. So the Europeans came over back in the day and just really considered independence and power um, as their right to take over land and deceive people, and then genocide happened, and it's very tragic. So the lessons we've learned through Western culture um, are compounded because the Western culture came in and dominated and did take over. Um, so there's kind of a learned pattern of behavior right there. That being independent is that being better or more successful than other people, or dominating them in a way where you have more power and or oppressing others, right? So that's why we even have cultural differences, and not differences but issues today where there's strong experiences of oppression. Part of that is rooted in the idea that if you're competing for something, you need to push the other down and push yourself up and be dominant. Um, and that is just not natural to the indigenous people. The indigenous people, and again, I'm a white guy who's descendant from those European settlers who did exactly what I just talked about. So I share this, and I'm discussing this out of the utmost respect, but also the knowledge that I could be misspeaking in some ways. So if anybody knows more on this topic than me, feel free to correct me, write in the comments, anything like that. But what I wanted to point out was it is the indigenous norm is that independence means respecting the right for independence. You have the right to your own independence. Um, Native teaching was designed to build respect and teach inner discipline. Being independent is about having your own inner discipline. It's what I mentioned before. If I have work to do, I need to have my own independence to decide to do it. Nobody needs to force me to do it. I need to do it on my own time, and I have to have that inner discipline. From the earliest childhood, you're given to make decisions and solve problems and show personal responsibility. Even as middle school students on up, you have the ability to make decisions for yourselves, and you often do them. And I see it a lot actually, where students, even adult learners, do it and they decide to not do the work, and that's their moment of independence. Um, Larger picture, it's preventing them from moving forward because they're not learning more in the education system, and that's the world we live in. But that is creating that sense of independence, and that's why it's so strong because it's so true and authentic. Um, so I encourage you to try to challenge yourself to make decisions to do the work in school to progress your own self. Don't do it for anyone else but yourself. And when we shift that and do school for yourself, I have observed where students find themselves a little more productive and successful. I could do a whole hour presentation on every one of these words. Okay, generosity. Finally, virtue was reflected in the preeminent value of generosity. The central goal of in Native American child rearing is to teach the importance of being generous and unselfish. What we do with our time, how we take care of others, or how we choose to not take care of others, those are all a reflection of generosity. In the words of the Lakota elder, you should be able to give away your most cherished possessions without your heart beating faster. Now, think about that for a second. Take that journal or pad of paper and write down your most prized possession. Not a person, not an animal, but something that you own, right? It could be my pen. I always play with a pen. I love that pen. It's silly, but I do. Maybe for this, I'll give that as an example. My heartbeat would go up if I was to give that away. I would miss it. I would feel sad. I don't know why. It's a pen. It's dumb, but I would, because I haven't really focused. And I mean, I guess we're all human, and there's always room to grow. But my generosity, I can sharpen that skill a little bit. I can pay more, be more mindful to that. And maybe a challenge for me would be to give that pen away. I wonder what that experience would be like. I'm probably going to do that now, which is an interesting thought. But my heart rate's going up, so I'm going to challenge myself to do something to where I can notice that. And gosh, when you think about mindfulness and the power of being present and noticing your emotions, it's an important skill, just like everything else I talk about on here is an important skill. In helping others, youth create their own proof of worthiness. When we notice just me giving away that pen, I know it's just a pen. That gift could make someone else feel better. It could bond and increase a bond I have with somebody else. It's going to mean that much more to them because they know how much it meant to me. There's a lot to that. So when you build our sense of worthiness, there's a lot of vulnerability in there. There's a lot of risk, but there's a lot of room for growth and room for just strong centeredness. Reflection time. I would take some time, pause the video after this again, use these prompts, and write down your understanding of the circle of courage. You can go back and review some of the stuff that I've read over. You could mute me and just read it, whatever you want to do, but think about the circle of courage. Did it, great spelling, did it change throughout the session? Did your understanding grow? Did you know everything that I had said? Do you disagree? Maybe you know more about the circle of courage than I. Maybe you disagree with some of the stuff that I said. Write that down and then email me because I want to know. How could it inform your daily decisions and actions? Think about how could that little circle and kind of the quadrants and different components of it impact your daily life and daily decisions. Uh, and you don't have to turn this in. This isn't for work. This is just for you and self-reflection and personal growth. This is one of my slides you see on all of these presentations, depending on which group of presentations you're watching. But I like you to think about how this might relate to previous sessions or previous topics I've covered that you've watched, and then how might this information help you in the future. So add that to your journal, write that stuff down. All of that reflection is just for you, and it's just helpful for you to help this information sink in and really hit you. Sometimes if we just watch a presentation, we might be playing a game or doing something else, and it kind of washes over us, and we sure spent the time to do it, but it didn't sink in. So when you journal and you write that down, it helps center you and focus, and then it also helps it sink in. I really encourage you to fill out this form. If you're on my website, you can find this form. I might add it to the Google or the YouTube channel. We'll see. But if you can, please fill out that form. It just lets me know that you watched the video, that you kind of give it a ranking, and give me some feedback and thoughts for future videos. So I want to thank you for watching this and being a part of this study skills / life skills lesson. Um, I really appreciate your time. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk soon if I can stop the video.